Hey everybody, it's Ricky from All Sorts of Words, and I'm super sick. If I take like deep breaths and stuff, just bear with me. I'm pretty sick. You can hear it in my voice. My voice gets 70% sexier the sicker I get. And so right now, if you measure the moisture in your own pants, you can actually determine how unhappy I feel. My very best friend in the world was just in the hospital for 6 days, and I visited every day. And it wasn't until they were transported from one hospital to another that they did an accurate virology panel and determined they had like a human neurovirus. The word human was in it. I'll put it in the nonsense here. And so I was like, oh, I'm screwed. I've been here every day touching all their stuff, bringing them stuff. In people like me, it's just a normal cold. In people like them who are immunocompromised, it's a hospital stay. But I kind of signed up for this and myself, and I did this to myself, so I have no one to blame. I've been gone for a little while, dealing with all of that. I wanted to make a video and kind of just like catch up, and I was thinking like, how do I remain creative and get my creative outlet while feeling this way? And so I've invited you into my bed. Welcome. Get comfortable. So these are just three things that I've wanted to talk about related to comic books lately. First thing I wanted to talk about, X-Men 97. So the 90s now is it's fashionable for people to talk about how they were like 90s kids. I was born in 85, which means at 95, the midway point in the 90s, I was 10 years old. I am the proto 90s kid. I grew up inculcated in the culture. So things like the amazing music scene that we had, the incredible movies, the TV shows. The 90s was a wild time to be a consumer of media. And now people are looking back on the past. The 90s is 30 years ago. And these companies are kind of regurgitating a lot of the old ideas. You know, everything old is new again. And so when they announced over at Marvel Studios they were doing X-Men 97 under Kevin Feige's leadership, I kind of lost my mind in terms of excitement. You can't get any bigger than this, right? X-Men was a seminal show for nerds. I don't care if you were a DC reader like me, or now I'm an indie reader now primarily. X-Men 97 is exciting for everybody who grew up with it, which was everybody. If someone says they were a 90s kid and they missed X-Men 97 and Spider-Man the animated series and Batman the animated series, like I don't know where they were, what weird culty religious family they had, but I can't explain it. Those shows were enormous. You couldn't get toys for Christmas without one of them being X-Men, Spider-Man, or Batman. Sorry. So imagine my delight when I see really cool modern things being mixed in with this 90s nostalgia. When I was watching X-Men 97, I wasn't just getting like a nostalgia cash in. It wasn't that. It was also really neat modern things, like seeing Cyclops move about the space with his optic blast was so cool. Like using it he can flicker it and like zip across the room. Seeing Jubilee using her power to like laser Tron ice skate on. I love seeing new applications of old powers. Even watching someone like Nightcrawler, where he's having a conversation and he's just constantly zipping around and changing positions. That wove the character closer to his powers. And here's the hot take. Episode 5, remember it, was, in my not so humble opinion, the single greatest writing that Marvel Studios has ever produced anywhere. I don't care if we're talking about the movies. I don't care if we're talking about the shows. I don't care if you want to start combining movies. If you want to say Endgame and Infinity War are one single project, the 30 minutes I spent watching Remember It had better, more impactful writing than those two movies combined. We're just talking about words on the page, folks. Things like Scott talking to the interviewer and saying, "It's a good thing we're not like you, because if we were, you'd be dead." Incredible. Things like the like pseudo racial discussion that was happening with Rogue and Magneto and her mutant heritage with Gambit. It's easy to say that, like, well, the story's about the fact that she can't physically touch, but really it was about societal expectations and how if she embraces this mutant side of her, this weakness that she has, that she can't physically touch people, she becomes less human. And so she's running into the arms of Magneto, a man she doesn't love, so that she can chase this like human feeling. Whereas Gambit's saying, "I love you just the way you are. I'm sorry that we can't touch, but like the feeling is there, right?" And it isn't until it's too late that she's finally on the same page with him. It was heartbreaking and beautiful.
Sugar, I can't feel you.
And that's just this one episode, the tragedy of it, the pathos, the mutants watching from Xavier's mansion, seeing Genosha fall and all of their emotional impact. They were witnessing their own mutant 9/11. It hit me in every way, and I watched it twice. I watched it once on my own because episodes 1 through 4 like really didn't grab my wife, and so I was watching it with her, but I decided to watch that one alone, and I enjoyed it so much that I watched it again with her, and both times I got really emotional. Just the pride of watching a character like Gambit that so many people don't like get his moment in the sun and earn it. I couldn't have been happier. Okay, hot take number 2. I think the overall story of Deadpool versus Wolverine is doomed to be comic book bullshit. Let me explain. So we learned from the most recent trailer of Deadpool and Wolverine that Deadpool's been tasked by the TVA, DVA, Devo, whoever, that he needs to save the world, and he needs to do so with this particular older Wolverine. And we know he's older because they make a joke about, like, male impotence with his claw. Here's the deal. Wolverine is a really good fighter. Boy, howdy, if you need fisticuffs, you should call Wolverine because he's going to handle himself well. But he's not the world's greatest intellect. He doesn't have any like magic association. He doesn't have a power that makes him an omega level mutant. He's just a really good fighter. He can punch and kick real good. Yet this movie is saying he needs to step up so that he can be the big saving grace. If all he's good for is just punching real good, there has to be some other reason why this Wolverine is particularly important. And so, like, every reason I'm coming up with in my head to justify Wolverine's inclusion and importance in this movie results in comic book superhero bullshit nonsense. So things like, well, maybe it's his healing factor, okay? We need his healing factor to fight off this mega virus. Okay, cool. I could use that right now. But Deadpool also has an amazing and ridiculous healing factor, which means they would have to hand wave away Deadpool's healing factor with comic book bullshit nonsense. Something like, well, your power is synthetic, technically, so we can't reproduce it. We need Wolverine. Comic book bullshit nonsense. Or just some like science jiggery fuckery, like, oh, well, his particular mutation can blah, blah. Or he's got some some memory locked in his head of like a nuke code we need. Regardless, watching the trailer, I was excited with the rest of you. I'm going to concede that. Again, DC and indie guy, but I got really excited watching that trailer. However, literarily, story-wise, I can't imagine any reason why Wolverine specifically would have to be the one to save the world without it being some sort of comic book jiggery fuckery. Oh, God, I'm uncomfortable. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that because, you know, this is comic book stuff and we are all here for comic books. So I don't know if I'm like upset about it, but I don't know. I kind of want more from my pathos. I want more depth to my characters other than like, well, there's a reason they have to be here. It's kind of like that Sherlock Holmes quote where it's you're supposed to get evidence and then draw conclusions, not begin with conclusions and then create evidence.
It is a capital mistake to theorize before one has data. Insensibly, one begins to twist facts to suit theories instead of theories to suit facts. Yes.
Comic books do that second one all the time. They take the latter, where they begin with the concept of, okay, well, we want to have all the superheroes in one room fighting this big monster. And then they come up with the justification for how they can, begin with their conclusion, rather than creating organic, natural ways for these characters to come together. And it makes sense. They have to create some DVA, Devo bullshit about why these characters have to be in the same room so that then they can sell us movie tickets. That doesn't say anything about the quality of the action. I bet the movie's going to be sweet. That doesn't say anything about the quality of the comedy. I bet that's going to be sweet. I bet it's going to be a sweet movie. It's just as the hype and the money increases in these productions, I wish the writing kept pace. Comic book hot take number 3. I'd like to talk to you for a brief moment about Schadenfreude. Schadenfreude, for the uninitiated, is a German word meaning you're getting enjoyment out of someone else's failure. And I think the Marvel movies lately have been infected with a unhealthy amount of Schadenfreude to the point where it might actually be warping our perceptions a little bit. Before I get to my point about what we're going to be talking about, let's just discuss bad movies for a second. I watch a ton of movies. I watch new movies, old movies, foreign movies of specific countries. Sometimes I'll get on like a kick where like, for the last 10 years, I've been absorbing a lot of Australian horror movies. Japanese dramas have recently captured my attention. Things like Drive My Car really caught my attention. French comedies are interesting. I love movies. Movies have a language. Did you know that? Like, there is a built-in language into filmmaking. And because we all start watching TV so young, this language is drip-fed to us over the years so that as we become adults, it's second nature. We don't need to think about it anymore. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Hey, Ricky. I was hoping you had a second so we could talk about something pretty sensitive. Oh, okay. I mean, anything you wanna say, I'd be happy to hear it. Okay, here goes. I think you need bigger underwear than you currently own. What? Bigger underwear. But why? Because you need to let that giant dick breathe. Now, if you notice, when I was playing one character, I was looking in one solid direction over and over again. And when I was playing the other character, I would do a counter shot and I would look in the exact opposite direction. Movies, television, cartoons, commercials, they do this all the time. And it's because it creates a continuity for your brain to grab onto. When one character is looking solidly in one direction, we put them in a position in our head. And then the other character looking in the opposite direction, it tells us these two characters are looking at each other, even though it's just me moving my head on the pillow. It still creates that illusion. That is the basics of filmmaking. Things like that. Things like characters not talking over each other so you can hear them. Things like the background noise being lower than the character volume so that we can focus on the dialogue. Things like some character looking off in the distance and then a shot of the thing that they're looking at so that we know that that's what the person is seeing. These are just the basics of filmmaking. And when those things aren't there, that is what makes a movie bad. Those basic building blocks of visual storytelling are the only things that can actually make a movie bad. Everything else, story, character, acting, music, tone, color, all of that can be chalked up to just not your taste. You don't have to love every movie. You don't have to respect every movie. You can think movies are boring, lame, dumb. That's fine. But a bad movie is like bad food. It has to be structurally broken for it to actually be terrible. Way too much salt, far too sweet, burnt, those basic things that will ruin the overall production. Otherwise, it's all a matter of taste. Food isn't bad because it's Indian. It's bad because it's on fire. Now, I'm saying all of that because I believe people are confusing bad with not for them. And I'm going to pick on a movie I haven't even seen yet. I'm actually watching it today, which is what brought this to mind. Madam Web. People are saying it's one of the worst Marvel movies ever. It's one of the worst movies of the year, period. And, the story does this, the characters do that. This doesn't make sense. The motivation's lame. But when I say things like, this movie is bad, I'm talking about like Birdemic. I'm talking about things like The Room.
Not hit her. It's not true. It's bullshit. I did not hit her. I did not. Oh, hi, Mark.
These nonsensical experiments in almost visual gibberish that don't really connect with the human brain in a meaningful way to tell a story. None of what I'm saying is an indictment of the story. Birdemic has a passable story. It's just the movie is gibberish.
Shit, here they come! Open the door!
The door's stuck.
Right, harder.
I can't hurry up.
The Room has a passable story. I mean, if anything, The Room sounds like a Hemingway tale, but it's in terms of tragedy. But it's just the way the movie is shot, the actual construction of the story. It's what makes it bad. I believe that people are using Schadenfreude in a way that might be bordering on inappropriate. People get happy when something they don't like fails. And so if you don't like the current political climate of the Marvel movies, if you don't like the fact that it's an all-female cast, if you don't like the fact that it's a Sony production and not a Marvel Studios production, if you don't like the fact that Spider-Man's in it, these are all contributing factors to why people would want it to fail. And so I feel like people can focus on the things that make the movie lame, but they're giving it this like extra button of it's bad. And one consistent indication that I find that indicates to me that people are engaging in Schadenfreude and not really analyzing the product itself so much is because they start before they've seen the movie. I was recently on a panel for The Crow, and people had really strong opinions on the new Crow movie, having not seen the new Crow movie. And so I do understand that in a video culture like this, where thoughts and feelings are immediately put out there, people are looking for emotional reactions. And so my take of I'm going to reserve judgment isn't exactly sexy. I can still talk about movies I haven't seen yet because I'm still having that emotional reaction to the trailer or to the actor interview or whatever. I mean, hell, I'm doing it right now with Madam Web. I haven't seen the movie yet, and I'm kind of taking a defensive position on it. What I'm trying to say is I think people would serve themselves a little better by understanding where that prejudgment, that prejudice before they see something's coming from. Is it the interviews you're watching? Is it the general tone of the conversation surrounding the product? I don't know. I'm rambling a little bit. I'm still sick. I guess what I'm saying is I owe you now a review. Is Madam Web terrible because structurally as a movie it doesn't work? Like, is it an actual bad movie, or is it just a movie that isn't very good? Those things are mutually exclusive. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this up here and then go watch Madam Web and give a 60-second review after this. So yeah, that'll be fun. We're gonna meet you back in the bed in a couple hours, and I'll tell you what I thought about Madam Web. That movie was an abortion. Every night for the rest of my life, I would rather go to sleep and dream of my own death than watch that movie again. Don't send help. I'm already dead.